Next up, we have Mesprit. This being of emotion is a member of the 4th generation's iconic trio of Lake Guardians / Pixies, and Mesprit resides over Lake Verity. In Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, Mesprit was unique among its brethren as being the only member of the trio to roam the Sinnoh region after it was encountered. It felt a special connection to the player due to Lake Verity's close proximity to Twin Leaf Town. And of course, this resulted in players worldwide then fumbling with their Poketches as they ran between 2 routes, waiting for it to appear in the grass, then attempting to utilize tactics like Mean Look and Quick Ball before Mesprit could run away again. You know, standard roaming Pokemon stuff. Yeah, I bet you can't wait for that in Brilliant Diamond or Shining Pearl, huh? Speaking of awesome Generation 4 moments, Mesprit also had a great appearance in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Time, Darkness, and Sky. Today, we'll examine how this Harbinger of Spirit, the perfect antithesis to Gen 4's Cyrus, performed in the competitive scene. And so, we ask, how good was Mesprit actually? And in this video, we'll be going over these competitive formats. Mesprit's fellow Lake Guardian brethren were far more prominent in their inaugural generation of OU. Azelf was one of the best, most defining leads in the metagame and the face of hyper-offense teams, whereas Uxie was its incredibly tanky counterpart that led off bulky offense teams. Mesprit was kind of an awkward in-between. It hit harder than Uxie but not nearly as hard as Azelf, and it was tankier than Azelf but not nearly as tanky as Uxie. Plus, it was actually the slowest of the 3. However, Mesprit had a few unique advantages over the other 2, and used them to carve a genuine niche for itself. One of its strengths was that thanks to its balanced stats, it could run several types of sets, and these sets could compensate for weaknesses commonly found in the other 2, who generally had to stick with the same style. For example, unlike Azelf, Mesprit could run an offensive set that was not incredibly frail and one-hit KO'd by much of the tier, giving it nice mid-game utility against other offensive threats. Its access to Ice Beam was also valuable. Alternatively, unlike Uxie, Mesprit could run a bulky set that was able to check dangerous threats like Gyarados and actually hit the opponent for decent damage in return. Furthermore, Mesprit possessed one of the most incredible supporting moves in the game in Healing Wish, which allowed it to remain useful even when at low health by reviving a battered teammate like Machamp for another round of terror. Overall, Mesprit's place in OU was the most specific of the Lake Guardians, but it was a genuinely good, even underrated Pokemon that saw tournament use and success from top players. Mesprit's lack of consistent OU usage led it to drop to UU, and there it established itself as one of the tier's most consistently reliable and defining Pokemon. Its most valuable trait was its incredible versatility. It didn't just perform several different roles, it excelled in each of them. It was one of the tier's best leads with 2 different sets that reliably set up Stealth Rock and further messed with the opponent through tricking a Choice Scarf or simply utilizing its excellent offensive coverage, the latter of which could also be mixed up as its trainer desired. These sets weren't solely relegated to the lead slot either. They could drop Stealth Rock and be of great use in the mid to late game. Mesprit's great natural bulk and useful defensive typing was great at letting it switch in and check threats throughout the game. Scarf and offensive sets were momentum maintaining machines as well, being among the tier's best users of U-turn. It was particularly solid at getting Dugtrio in safely against Registeel for the benefit of sweeping teammates like Swellow and Leafeon. Non-lead Mesprit could act as a sweeper itself by boosting with Calm Mind, and even this set had variety to it in both item choice and the 4th move. Mesprit fit on a wide variety of teams, fulfilled a variety of roles, and performed reliably on a game-to-game basis. As such, it was one of the easiest Pokemon to slap on a team and expect consistent results. It had lots of room for experimentation too. It barely even used Healing Wish thanks to Gen 4's mechanics being fairly difficult to work with at times, but with care, the results could be devastating. Mesprit was one of the most defining faces of DPP UU. The 5th generation of RU was noted for its similarity to the 4th generation of UU, and Mesprit exemplified this concept beautifully. Sure, its movesets weren't exactly the same, but the way it played was. Mesprit was still a great offensive Pokemon with valuable defensive utility and valuable support moves, especially as Healing Wish had been buffed significantly and provided even more depth to Mesprit's already reliable offensive Stealth Rock set. The main difference between the 2 generations was that in Gen 4, Mesprit usually erred on the side of support with an occasional foray into acting as a threat in its own right, whereas in Gen 5, it showed just how devastating it could be. The support brought by its Stealth Rock set, whether it ran U-turn or Healing Wish in the last slot, was still a great asset for many teams, but it also showed itself to be a massive threat with its new Choice Spec set, which ripped through much of the tier with Side Shock and crushed common defensive staples like Cryogonal, Quillfish, and Rotom-Mow, and using coverage moves and trick to ruin the few Pokemon that could withstand it, such as Ferroseed and of course, Uxie. Of course, the prediction-reliant nature of locking into one move could sometimes be easily exploited. But Mesprit could just as easily capitalize on players counting on it being locked into a move by utilizing a vicious expert belt set that punished any such assumptions through its flexibility and switching between its great super effective coverage. Escavalier looking to pursuit trap it would get blasted away by hidden power fire, Drudagon would get ice beamed, and Alomomola would get thunderbolted. It was especially vicious alongside spikes to further punish attempts by opponents to pivot around its coverage, as well as knocking opposing Pokemon into KO range more easily. Whether it was blasting through opposing teams or utilizing support moves, Mesprit was useful defensively even without investment thanks to its great natural bulk, allowing it to check dangerous fighters like Medicham, Delayed, Hitmonlee, and Scarf and Boar. Overall, Mesprit slotted onto many teams, fulfilled several valuable roles, and reliably performed game in and game out. It was a thoroughly excellent Pokemon in Gen 5 RU. Mesprit had always competed with Uxie in Gen 4 UU and Gen 5 RU, but it had never really been outclassed. Its more offensive approach made for a nice yin to Uxie's yang. However, in Gen 6 RU, Uxie was largely preferred. Mesprit was still useful thanks to the excellence of Healing Wish, but Medicham was one of the most dominant, dangerous Pokemon in the tier, and Uxie's immense bulk was key in reliably staving it off. Mesprit still had a worthwhile niche in the tier on more offensive teams, but balance was largely the name of the game in ORAS RU, and Uxie was unequivocally the better choice on such squads. As such, Mesprit fell to NU. This quickly revealed itself as a blessing in disguise though, as Mesprit established itself as not just a great NU Pokemon, but one of the metagame's very best, most defining Pokemon. As always, its versatility was on full display, and no other Pokemon in the tier could match it in this area. Nor could most of them match the efficacy with which Mesprit pulled off any of its sets, given how auspicious it was at switching into battle. Choice Specs was inherently one of the most dangerous wall breakers around, just off the sheer strength of Psychic alone, as it smashed many common defensive staples such as Vileplume, Garbodor, and fighting types, while Mesprit could easily adapt the rest of its move pool to ruin every potential switch in the tier. Trick alone was incredibly difficult to deal with. Offensive 3 attack sets were terrific due to their versatility. Not only did the move flexibility and coverage allow Mesprit to break down defensive cores easily, it also enjoyed Cobra Berry, allowing it to bypass the newly buffed knockoff as well as pursuit attempts. The 4th move made it even better than it would be as just a pure attacker. It could either run Calm Mind to make itself even more difficult to deal with and potentially even threaten the sweep, or it could Healing Wish to a teammate once it had been weakened. Alternatively, it could fully commit to Calm Mind sweeps with the sub Calm Mind set, allowing it to set up in the face of bulky walls, hoping to beat Mesprit through status. Mesprit could even run an excellent defensive set if it so desired, reliably setting up rocks while checking the slew of physical attackers in the tier, U-turning to get teammates in safely, and further supporting those teammates with Thunder Wave or Healing Wish. Mesprit could really do whatever it wanted. Some players ran Calm Mind Protect sets, whose ability to forage for every bit of leftovers recovery possible made Mesprit even more difficult to take down, while Scarf sets were occasionally seen being used to solid effect. Mesprit shaped ORAS NU like few other Pokemon. Mesprit was one of the most effective, defining presences in the metagame. Sadly, after Mesprit's breakout generation came a serious semi-sophomore slump. Sun and Moon was a thoroughly forgettable time for the Pixie of Lake Verity. It started out by utterly reigning over PU. Every one of its sets was incredible, from Choice Specs to defensive Stealth Rock to Choice Scarf to an offensive Calm Mind set that had been bolstered further in the generational shift by the addition of Psychenium Z, providing a huge power boost and a weakening tool for knockoff in one item. But sadly, before long, Mesprit saw enough usage in NU to move up to the tier, cutting its PU dominance short. In a cruel twist of fate, it was actually moving up to NU and staying there that was to be Mesprit's doom. It returned to NU once again and stayed there, and that was the problem. Power creep had rendered Mesprit thoroughly useless in the tier. The metagame was far too fast, strong, and bulky for it, not to mention littered with super effective hits at every corner. Mesprit simply couldn't keep up. All it could hope to do was set up Stealth Rock early on and then try to get a Healing Wish off later. Make no mistake, Healing Wish is an amazing move, but generally you want more out of a Pokemon than for it to feint itself to heal up another teammate. It's not enough to generate a legitimate niche in and of itself, and Mesprit didn't really offer much besides it. It was a mediocre Stealth Rocker in comparison to its competition, since its typing just matched up so much more poorly against the metagame it was supposed to be switching in against. What was so sad about this story was that Mesprit wasn't given a chance to shine in PU, where it likely would have been excellent. For some reason, even though it was so bad that it was blacklisted from discussions for being a time waster, it kept getting used in NU, and thus was unable to fall to PU by usage, dooming it to forever be never used and never used. Mesprit finished the 7th generation still stuck screaming desperately yet voicelessly in this terrible purgatory, unable to escape. Mesprit didn't come around in Generation 8 until the release of the Crown Tundra, at which point it settled nicely into PU in a series of roles pleasantly reminiscent of its times as one of the most versatile and effective Pokemon in its given tier. Mesprit has benefited from several changes brought on by Generation 8. Though it doesn't love not being able to use Hidden Power, it enjoys the boosting upgrade of Nasty Plot, and it absolutely adores no longer having to fear Pursuit. Its offensive and defensive support sets are still tremendously consistent utility Pokemon, getting up rocks, checking offensive threats, notably fighting types, a few times, and once it's weakened, healing wishes to a teammate. This ability to be useful no matter what its HP stat is part of what makes Mesprit such a consistently useful Pokemon. With Cobra Berry and Dazzling Gleam, it checks even Scrafty and knockoff Gallade, bypassing their lack of a psychic weakness and Mesprit's own dark weakness. Mesprit has several other great sets too. It poses a huge offensive threat in both the mid and late game with Choice Specs or Nasty Plot, while its Choice Scarf set is a fantastic blend of revenge killing, momentum maintaining, late game cleaning, and even supporting thanks to a fast healing wish. Mesprit holds the same excellent place in the PU metagame that it has in several generations prior, and Arceus willing, it will stay that way this time around. Though we certainly won't complain if it moves up to a useful place in a higher tier by virtue of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, giving it some cool new moves. Much like in singles, Mesprit's middling spread made it hard for it to find a niche. What little VGC usage it did see was as a Trick Room setter, but even there it faced harsh competition from the likes of Jellicent, Cofagrigus, and especially Cresselia. Mesprit was widely seen as a largely inferior Cresselia, as it lacked the bulk and reliable recovery that made Cresselia one of the most premier Trick Room setters in the game. Mesprit did have access to a neat tech with Imprisoned Trick Room, but it wasn't enough to justify using it. What little play Mesprit saw invariably capitalized on its superior offenses in comparison to Cresselia. The coverage between the two was similar. Cresselia also had access to Ice Beam and Psychic, but Mesprit's extra offense meant that Ice Beam could actually dole out significant damage. Throughout 2012 and 2013, various members of the Team Magma team building group, including Tiffany, Shiloh Stanley, Blake Bopper Hopper, and Gabby Snyder also experimented with Mesprit, valuing the roll compression it offered, as well as its unpredictability. Items went from Ice Gem to Psychic Gem to Life Orb, as each offered different boosts to Mesprit's strengths. In contrast to Cresselia, Mesprit could actually threaten slow, bulky Trick Room checks like Amoonguss and Conkeldurr. At least that was the idea. But despite their innovation and good results with other niche picks, none of the Team Magma members achieved especially significant results with the Pokemon. In 2012, however, Marco Nick Score Sandoval was able to top cut US Nationals with Mesprit packing Blizzard, giving it some credence as a Trick Room setter in Hail Room teams. Other than that, Mesprit was destined to mediocrity as usual. It's popped up once or twice throughout the years. Amabone used it for 3rd place in Indonesia's first Premier Challenge in 2015, and Charles Jones actually did make use of Trick Room Imprisoned early on in 2020 to top cut the Victory Road Tundra Challenge. But for the most part, Mesprit has never been able to muster a significant threat in VGC. Special thanks to Samuel Harzma, Gabby Snyder, Blake Hopper, Kay Dyson, and Chalky Horstein for the information. And that's it. So how good was Mesprit actually? Well, it essentially ran the same sets ever since it jumped on the scene in 4th generation UU and occasionally OU. But those sets possess such versatility between them and are so effective at what they do that Mesprit has repeatedly proved itself a symbol of consistency in various tiers throughout the generations. Whether it's been brandishing its bevy of useful utility or it's been posing an offensive threat, Mesprit has struck the perfect balance between the two extremes of its late Guardian counterparts. It's been an incredibly consistent performer, both in the metagames it's landed in and across the generations. Its only off generation was when it was ripped out of a PU tier it was dominating to be stuck in a tier it had no business in. Yet the player base would inexplicably not let it leave. Besides that, Mesprit's been a beacon of reliability and shows no sign of slowing down, especially as Generation 8 was kind enough to give it Nasty Plot. Hopefully the Gen 4 remakes continue in this vein. So overall, Mesprit has had quite a solid competitive career. Thanks for watching everyone, and as always, if you liked the video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content. And in the comments, I want to know, what do you think about competitive Mesprit? What type of buffs do you want to see to it in the Gen 4 remakes? Whatever it is, let me know in the comments. Also, thank you so much to our patrons for continued support of our videos, and thank you to everyone else watching as well. And follow my crew on these social media platforms. And that's all I got. See you next time, everyone.